I am pleased to greet you from Washington, D.C., where our series of programs continues, not far at all from the White House. Is it me, or are you fed up with the Dan Quayle jokes? Come on, enough is enough. I mean, the guy's got a wife, kids, a dog, and a cat. Wait till the media gets on you and checks your spelling. Would you like this kind of examination? Here is the most ridiculed, most publicly abused public official in the history of our beloved republic. Have we gone too far? And let's get this in. While the press is out there bashing good old Dan Quayle, they missed the SNL story. Or is it just me? I'd love to know what this audience thinks. And we will find out. Let me tell you who's here. Deborah Werksmen joins us. You are managing editor of the Quayle Quarterly. No kidding, Dan Quayle has a magazine. Jeff Yoder is publisher, and it's working. How many? You selling over 20,000 of these, are you?
3,500 subscribers, and we've sold 8,000 copies of our second issue. We're gone into another printing.
And I assume you print all the latest jokes?
No, we don't print the jokes. The humor in our magazine is provided by Dan Quayle's own words.
Jeff, do you allow support for our vice president in your quarterly?
Sure we do. We've started a regular column called In Quayle's Corner by a writer called Paul Izzo, who thinks Dan's doing a great job. And we welcome contributions from other people. We print letters from Quayle supporters. We just like to have fun with it.
Well, if you've been living in a cave, you may not have seen what's happening in media. Dan Quayle may be the best thing that's happened to comedy. How would you feel if you were the subject of this kind of humor? I'm about to share with you a sequence of sketches. First, you'll see Robin Williams. Part of his commentary we can share with you on our family show. Robin Williams performing at Comic Relief. That's the reason for the 800 number that you'll see below him as he works. A Saturday Night Live sketch. And David Letterman. Everybody's in on this. Here is just a sample of what's happening to the Vice President of the United States in the world of entertainment. Roll the tape.
People look at Dan Quayle and say, why was he elected? I say, here's a big clue. Insurance. Okay. You think about that George is traveling through the deep south. There's somebody up there with a 30-06 going, I'm going to get him, man. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get the president. Wait a minute. I shoot him, he becomes... Oh, no, that's it.
Listen, everybody. I've got Dan's college yearbook. I want to read you some things about Dan. No. He was vice president of his fraternity. How's that for irony? He was on the golf team where he always scored in the low 70s. He majored in political science where he also scored in the low 70s.
And they were asking various people in Washington if this had come as a surprise to them, this sudden merger of the two, North and South Yemen. And Vice President Dan Quayle said, no, he was not surprised by this. He had a hunch something like this might happen when they tore down the famous Yemen wall. So...
I'll tell you who doesn't think this is funny. Roger Ailes joins us, campaign media consultant for the Bush-Quayle ticket in 1988. You may know that he has served as consultant and image maker for a number of political candidates, including Rudolph Giuliani in the New York City mayoral campaign last year. He is joined by Mitch Daniels, Jr., president and CEO of the Hudson Institute, a conservative think tank in Alexandria, Virginia. You should know that Mr. Daniels is a former aide to Senator Dick Lugar, who himself was the former mayor of Indianapolis. Tell me, what do you think? What's wrong with this, Roger?
Well, there's nothing wrong with humor, and I think the Vice President laughs at these kinds of things as well. The problem is the overwhelming investment that the media now has in keeping Dan Quayle down. They tried for 8 years to get Reagan. They tried to get Bush. It didn't work. So now they're on Quayle because they've got an investment, a financial investment, an ideological investment in keeping him down. If he ever gets back up, that means the media was wrong again. And the media hates to be wrong, and so they keep pounding and keep pounding. And what's unfair is, as you stated early on, I once worked with a political candidate, and I said, what was the toughest part of your life? He said, the toughest part was coming down to the breakfast table and talking to my kids and having the ugly cartoons of me in the paper that day and trying to explain to them that this was just humor. This is a real, live human being who believes in family, who did an exceptional job in the United States Senate, and was praised by Democrats and Republicans up through 1987. But when the press got a hold of him in 1988, they haven't let go. And that's what's wrong with it.
Mr. Daniel?
I don't believe that Dan Quayle's a victim here. I believe that the Republican Party is at fault for this, and it's not Dan Quayle. I don't believe, back when they were making the decision, when the president was making the decision to choose who we should have run as his running mate, that he made the right decision then. And I don't blame Dan, I blame the party and the president.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the president...
Incidentally, you are named in an article in Vanity Fair magazine by Gail Sheehy as the person who most enthusiastically pursued the candidacy, the choice of Dan Quayle to the president on the occasion of his having to make that selection. Is that true, Mr. Ailes?
Gail Sheehy has several factual errors in her stories. That was just one of them. But I certainly did support Dan Quayle, and he was on my list of people that I thought would make a good vice president. It was a correct assessment.
He was on your short list.
He was on my short list, no question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we had nothing to do with the selection. As political people, all we did was put in people that we thought would make a good vice president.
And you thought
I had
he would make a good vice president.
I had 12 people on the list. Dan Quayle was one of them.
Yeah. Mr. Daniels?
I don't think there's a whole lot wrong with anything that's gone on except for the factual errors, and I think sometimes some sloppy journalism. I mean, we have a healthy tradition of poking fun at political figures in this country. Vice President's probably first among them. Secretary Gorbachev's in town right now, has passed a law making it a crime to insult him, so our friends here be in jail for their newsletter in the Soviet Union.
Or worse.
Or worse. But I do think that it goes out of bounds frequently in terms of lazy journalism that repeats, as has happened many times, falsehoods without the sort of checking and research that ought to be a part of any such reporting.
I don't believe it's a journalistic argument. I think that the people, if Dan Quayle didn't have problems in what he said and didn't speak before he thought, then there wouldn't be that problem.
Yeah.
There are about 6 things that you could say were misstatements that we've looked at very carefully. He's held over 350 press conferences. The press has a tendency to very selectively edit what you see and hear, and if it was somebody else, they wouldn't play that slip of the tongue at all. But we've all made them, and we all do. With Dan, it's front page story.
And repeated.
And repeated and pounded for several days as if it's a big news story. Remember how the press works. George Bush slipped and announced Pearl Harbor Day was September 25th, and it was 3 days of news. I don't know what else went on in the world during those 3 days, but certainly that slip of the tongue wasn't worth 3 days of news coverage. The media in this country is interested in pictures, mistakes, and attacks, and the media hates issues and substance, and most of all, they hate to be wrong, they hate to be embarrassed.
I think...
Cincinnati media bias in this?
Okay, everyone is entitled to slips and mistakes, but politicians especially, they have the best help in the world, speechwriters, everything. If these gentlemen were doing a better job, maybe Dan wouldn't look quite as bad as he does.
Speaking of some of the things he said, let's see this first visual presentation, Brian. We'll just read this off the screen. May we see what a waste it is. This is to the Negro College, United Negro College Fund. What a waste it is to lose one's mind or not to have one.
First of all, that's factually correct, you know. But it is a waste.
Uh-huh. Next slide. This next Thursday will be an historic day as America celebrates the 20th anniversary of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Lukens walking on the moon. Buzz Lukens is the Republican congressman who was recently indicted or found guilty of having sex with a 16-year-old girl and was not successful in his attempt to regain his seat in Congress. Next slide. On the Holocaust, it was an obscene period in our nation's history. And then he defended his statement by saying, I didn't live in this century. Now, let me once again try to give the Vice President the benefit of the doubt here. Well,
I think he deserves
let me just get this in. Your very talented and insightful host has had not a few letters from viewers who've written for transcripts to this program. And it embarrasses me when I read what I said. This is not to say that this kind of thing should be overlooked by the press. The question is whether we're piling on here.
Well, I
Yes,
think
please.
that in addition to the verbal gaffes that cause us all to sort of laugh and chuckle and make Quayle a figure of fun, we're also concerned about the misstatements that indicate a gap in knowledge where he really should be more knowledgeable. For example, on the Larry King show, he said something about Dubček in Czechoslovakia calling in the tanks in 1968.
And they hauled Dubček out in handcuffs
That's
for
right.
supporting the Prague Spring uprising.
And something that Quayle said about thinking that Mars was in about the same orbit as the Earth. This man is the head of our National Space Council. That's, what, 5th grade science? We're concerned about those statements as much as the ones that are just purely funny.
I think we should be grateful to the President and to Mr. Ailes because, as Art Buchwald and Russell Baker and some other columnists have said, and as you said, Ms. Werksmen, you don't have to provide the humor. You just pick up what those men say. And I think we are, as a nation, we should be grateful for the humor that these people are contributing to our country.
Does it make you nervous that he's a heartbeat away from the President?
It does, yeah.
No.
All right. Are you there, caller? Hi, caller. Are you there?
I'm here.
Go ahead. Good. Go ahead. Please,
I'm here.
Yes, please go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Very good. We're waiting for your commentary.
Okay, I think that all this Dan Quayle bashing is prejudice at its worst because people judge, I mean, it's a stereotype that they place on him. And they don't know the full content of what he does every day. You know, the American people only see these few quips that the press likes to, you know, flash all over the front page. I've seen Dan Quayle in a press conference, and he was very intelligent and had some great ideas, and I don't think the press ever covers anything like that. They only find the bad things.
You are certainly aware that more than half the people in this country believe that he is not qualified to be president.
Oh, sure, but what have the American people know about most things? I mean, how...
Have to have too much about facts to have an altered perception. From the start of the candidacy, we had then Vice President Bush with advisors and then Senator Quayle with handlers. That's a big difference in terminology.
Yes. Yes.
I was told that Roger Ailes used to work for Merv Griffin. Is that right?
Mike Douglas.
Mike Douglas? So in fact that you're a Hollywood person, not a political advisor, and you're trying to advise a vice president, and that's politics. So what you're really concerned with is the Hollywood aspect of politics, not politics itself. Is that true?
Can I defend that, Phil? I've worked in politics for 25 years. So, you know, the fact that I had another career early in my life shouldn't be held against me.
But I do think there's a trend in politics today towards the superficial.
That's
towards
because
the
of the media.
cosmetic.
That's because of the media, not because of us. They want pictures, mistakes, and attacks. It's my orchestra pit theory. Two guys get on a stage. One guy says, I have solutions to the peace in the Middle East, and the other guy falls in the orchestra pit. Who do you think's going to be on the front page of the paper? Who do you think's going to lead the evening news? The guy lying in the bass drum. They don't want substance. That's what's going on here.
Brother Roger, there's not a few folks out there that would wonder about you suggesting that the people don't, that the media doesn't want substance. You're the king of the 30-second commercial.
Absolutely.
Hardly a
that's what they want.
substantial contribution to America's political life.
Yeah, we tell more about the issues in those 30 seconds than the news do in 30 minutes every night, because the news covers the polls, the horse race, and who attacked who that day.
Yes.
That's how you get in the news.
That was what I was just going to ask you. I thought you did the commercials in the 1988 presidential campaign that were the Willie Horton commercials and the other commercials that were what I thought were dealing with not substance.
Blame the press again.
No, I won't.
I think he's part
No,
of
I won't.
that.
I will say to you, how many of you know why Willie Horton was in prison in the first place? Not what he did when he got out. Why was he in prison?
Murder is the answer.
Right. He went to a gas station, stabbed a 16-year-old boy 19 times, sexually mutilated him, and put him in a garbage can. Now, I realize that the media would like...
How many of you know how many governors have released first-degree murderers from penitentiaries? And how many of us have really been presented with the whole picture? And how unfair was this focus on Michael
Phil,
Dukakis?
can we talk about Dan Quayle? I mean...
Yeah, let's talk about that. This lady sent a letter to Dan Quayle. She talked about misinformation. She wrote to Mr. Beckwith, the press secretary for the vice president. She said, the Quayle Quarterly's purpose is to provide those interested in government with a ready source of information, his role in the administration, how he chooses to implement that role. It will contain factual information about the vice president's activities, readings, opinions, and related articles.
And the Quayle
And
Quarterly
it's
does.
ground out in their basement on a mimeograph machine, and it's a bunch of crap. These are a couple of people who voted for Dukakis, who hate Dan Quayle, and are trying to make a buck destroying his image.
Actually, actually, the Quayle Quarterly is a political satire magazine. We contacted David Beckwith's office so that we could get information about the vice president.
He gave it to you, and you didn't print a word of it.
We printed a transcript of a press conference that Mr. Beckwith sent us about the Competitiveness Council, which Dan Quayle heads, and which has no mandate, no staff, no budget.
What did you do about the Space Council?
We talked about the
he
fact
has massive accomplishments in the Space Council area.
Mr. Ailes,
have you
let
repeated
me
them?
speak,
Please speak.
We reported on the fact that Dan Quayle was asking Tom Clancy, the novelist who wrote The Hunt for Red October, as an unpaid consultant to the National Space Council. We are continuing to cover those two councils. The magazine is full of articles written by writers all over the country. Our subscribers are people from all walks of life who are interested in politics and in political satire, and we don't pretend to be inclusive of every single thing under the sun relating to Dan Quayle.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, this newsletter is in a couple of proud American traditions. People are out trying to make a buck, fair enough. People who want to refight the last election as admitted partisan Democrats should have the right to do that. Now, in terms of superficiality, though, by her own admission, Deborah puts out a very superficial piece in which you will not find the fact that the vice president has handled 9 foreign trips to 25 countries, some of the most delicate tightrope diplomacy that any recent American official has been asked to conduct up and down this hemisphere and elsewhere without any serious misstep or misstatement at all. Moreover, that he has given these 350-odd press conferences.
Covered in our
Let
second
him
issue.
speak, madam.
You don't have to handle your own dirty work when you bring Roger along.
I'm pleased to present the Quayle Quarterly. Here's volume 1, number 1. We already have 2 that have been published.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And whatever you say about the publishers of the Quayle Quarterly, please know this, that the circulation has improved dramatically since the first...
We get 200 to 300 subscription orders every week.
under the masthead, a watchful eye on the vice presidency. You should also know that on the back you can order bumper stickers saying, "Keep George healthy," for the love of country. Also available at this address are T-shirts and other Quayle-abilia.
Phil, can I also comment on something Mitch said? I mean, in our second issue, I had a front page article talking about Quayle's trips to Latin America. I pointed out the fact that Latin Americans have given him very high marks, that they think that he knows a lot about Latin American affairs, and, you know, we gave credit where credit was due. You know, I think that portraying the Quayle Quarterly as nothing but a Quayle-bashing rag is not accurate. We do, however, as Roger said, we give people what they're interested in. People are interested in satire and controversy and humor.
You are also offered with an advertisement in the Quayle Quarterly. You can buy the Dan Quayle doormat. Please wipe your feet, J. Danforth Quayle. I think the advertising slug is, "I've seen your doormat," and it's no Dan Quayle doormat.
We no longer run that ad, by the way.
You don't?
We dropped that ad.
Why?
We felt that it was in bad taste.
What?
We decided that the Dan Quayle doormat was in bad taste, and we decided not to run that ad in our second issue.
Really?
Yes.
Well, what would be the criteria in determining that?
Well, we decided that since we are in this for the long term, we want to be reporting on Dan Quayle as long as he is in public office. We have started a column called In Quayle's Corner that Jeff already mentioned. We would like to present a rounded picture, but that doesn't change the fact that Dan Quayle is still a very enormous figure for satire.
The issue of Dan Quayle becomes a very important one. Say what you want about the office. This is how our country works, and now Dan Quayle finds himself just a heartbeat away from the presidency, and we have lots of hands up in our studio here in Washington, D.C., and we'll give you an opportunity to make your contribution in just a moment. Is there a caller on the line? Go ahead, please. Are you there, caller?
Bill,
yeah.
I believe unquestionably that freedom of speech and freedom of the press are some of our basic rights in this country. However, I also feel once an individual is elected to the second highest office in the land, then we should respect that office. Even if we don't like the individual, we should respect the office. The majority of the people elected this person.
How do you feel? Can you see your Can you see your television? Can you come in on this? Is that possible? How do you feel about this? Stand by your Dan.
Well, yeah, like I said, but we all enjoy a joke, but I think there's a point when the joke should stop so that they can go on with the business of running our government.
Yeah. I thank you for your call. Let me take another caller. Are you there? Are you there, caller?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The selection of vice president should be one who is experienced and the most qualified to lead our country. From a list of 12 to 15 prospective vice presidents, it appears that Dan Quayle was selected over prospective candidates such as Robert Dole. And I'd like to know what was involved in making that selection, because he seemed to be the least experienced and least qualified.
Mr. Daniels commenting.
Well, that choice has been ratified by an overwhelming majority of the American people, and I would like to observe that at this moment, which is what I think concerns us, there is no one better prepared in America to step in the modern vice presidency. And, well, now listen, actually, I think it's important to pay attention to this. I worked in the White House a couple of years, and want to talk a little bit from experience here. In the modern vice presidency, I'd give Jimmy Carter, by the way, the credit for initiating this. Since Mondale, our vice presidents have been cut in to everything in a way they were formerly cut out. And Dan Quayle every day spends minimum of an hour and a half with the president. He's in every national security meeting, reads every national security briefing, and by virtue of the way George Bush is conducting his presidency, is involved in the most intensive, really the only such graduate course in the world.
Yes.
He wasn't picked for vice president just from some fluke. He is one of the good old boys in the Washington, D.C. area. He was, Rob Owen comes straight from his office. He's one of the good old boys.
Rob Owen, as in the Watergate Rob Owen?
No, not Watergate, Iran-Contra.
I meant Iran-Contra. Yes, yes. Did I make a mistake? We'll take that out of the tape, I'll tell you that. I'm no fool, you know.
Also,
yeah.
I just like...
I mean, this is, just as Roger Ailes has said, I mean, this is a clear case of the media wanting to pick up on the mistakes. I mean, a good example is Dan Quayle was in the Situation Room for the whole Philippine, when Corazon Aquino was in danger, and he handled that when George Bush wasn't there. And furthermore, I find it interesting that for two people that voted for Michael Dukakis, you know, his disapproval ratings are much higher than Dan Quayle.
But he's not vice president, is he? Or president?
I think the bottom line is that the American people have a right to know who they put in office, how they're represented, and the media is obligated to report the story, and that's the bottom line.
Also, given what Mr. Daniels just said, it's true that when Bush was vice president, no one expected him to be president. 8 years later, he was the one who was in the White House all these years. Quayle has talked about making a run for the presidency in 1996. He may very well be our next president, either by something happening to Bush or by election, and we think it's very important to keep an eye on him.
And to know who he is.
Happening. That's right.
It should also be said, Mr. Daniels, Mr. Ailes, that James Baker, there is no closer confidant to the president than James Baker, disapproved of this choice.
That's a rumor. I don't know. Has he ever said that? Well, if you believe the if you believe the New York Times, you probably believe this rag they put out.
The New York Times is certainly Dan Quayle was not on Jim Baker's short list.
I have no idea. You'd have to ask
now,
the
there's also
secretary.
some question about whether the president even consulted Jim Baker about this appointment. And is it possible that the president of the United States made his decision about Dan Quayle without consulting anybody?
No, the president talks to hundreds of people. He knows probably more people and talks to more people than anybody in Washington. If I may.
Why doesn't he tell us why he chose
He
Dan
did. He
Quayle
said he's the best man for the... Let me read a couple of quick things. The senator from Indiana is a valuable and effective member of our committee, Senate Armed Services. He is an assertive power. He has done a superb job. Senator Sam Nunn. These kind of things don't get reported too much, but these are the things that are really being said about Dan Quayle. I commend the senator from Indiana. He made one of the most eloquent statements I have heard in a long time. He was speaking from knowledge and commitment on the subject of the ABM Treaty's integrity, and I admire that statement, Senator Ernest Hollings, another Democrat. This man had a tremendous record up until the morning the press was surprised by his appointment to vice president. They put a financial commitment. They put investigative reporters all over Indiana. The reporters called in and said, we can't find anything on this guy. He got in the Guard legitimately. They said, we've got an investment in this. Find something on this guy.
That's ridiculous. The press does not make that kind of investment in their stories.
Have
They
you ever
go
worked
on
in the
to
press?
the
I
next
have.
stories.
I've worked as a news director. Have you ever worked in the press?
And besides, that has nothing
You have
to
an
do with us.
outplacement service, don't you, for failed
No,
people?
sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
That has nothing to do with us.
Yes, briefly, please.
I'd like to know what these two people are going to do to make a buck when they don't have Dan Quayles to kick around.
Well, you might be surprised. You might be surprised to learn that even though we have a lot of subscribers, this is not how we make our living. We're not making money at the Quayle Quarterly.
They're giving it to charity.
We do it for fun.
Yes, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Yeah, a previous caller had suggested to us as American people to respect the vice presidency. I want to ask Mr. Ailes, what respect is there when a vice president goes down to Latin America and buys an obscene doll?
The doll is an anatomically correct doll. Did the vice president know it was that? You pull
He
it up
didn't,
and
he
the,
didn't know it when he picked it up. He was just looking at artifacts. The press blew it up into a major
But he
event
knew it when
and,
he
overrode and
What does it
overrode-
do, that doll? She wants.
There's an illustration of the photograph of the doll that Quayle bought in the second issue of the Quayle Quarterly. We think we're the only publication in the country that could print a photograph.
Write to us
of
in
it.
Bridgeport, Connecticut, and we'll send you
We'll
subscription
send you a
information.
photograph.
You're probably against sex education in schools, too.
Washingtonian magazine here in Washington.
That is totally wrong to go out as a vice president to buy an anatomically correct doll. I'm not against sex education.
He's 21 years old. I mean, a laugh's a laugh, isn't it? In a moment, we'll show you.
It was a joke.
Lapse in
It was a
judgment.
joke, and if these people can have their jokes, the vice president can have his jokes.
The Washingtonian magazine here in Washington published a picture of that doll, which they got from a newsman who had also purchased.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yes.
Every politician undergoes intense scrutiny for federal level office. I want to know, the media has been focusing perhaps too much on Dan Quayle, but if he is truly competent, why hasn't he overcome that?
Can I just give you a... Let me just get some... Are you there, caller? I'm glad you waited. Hi.
Yes, Phil. I'm challenging your statistics that over half the country doesn't support Dan Quayle when obviously they nominated to put him into office.
But the vice presidency is not an elected office. It's a hand-picked nomination. And the party has almost never, I think twice in 200 years, disapproved of the presidential candidate selection. In fact, a study by the 20th Century Fund looked at this problem and talked about whether it's in the best interests of the American electorate to have the succession go to someone who was not elected by the people. And a couple of solutions they proposed was, if it's going to be an appointed office, let's do it during the transition period with congressional oversight, so that at least some representatives of the electorate will be involved in that decision.
Well, there's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
You know, we spent a long time in this country getting to the point where the people could make these choices. And we passed some constitutional amendments. I hate, Deborah, to conduct a little civics class here, but the vice presidency is an elected office. Commercials were run by the Dukakis campaign saying this is a big issue, maybe the big issue, and Bush-Quayle should be defeated over it, and the American people spoke very loudly.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty clear that people vote for the president regardless of who the vice presidential candidate is.
Well, I think, you know, Stephen, my only point is, like most liberal Democrats, you'd prefer to have the world run by judges and bureaucrats, but unfortunately we have a system, which the world is moving toward, where the people make these decisions, and the people did.
I think though, that our system is somewhat circumventing our constitutional democracy.
I don't
It's
quarrel with
not
your right to
truly-
prefer a government by the elite, you know, preferably you two.
Excuse me,
but
I'm sorry, that's exactly what we're
What we are
opposing.
opposing. Government by the elite. Who selected Quayle without an explanation to the public, against everybody else's better judgment? And in fact, had it been an appointment situation where this person would have had to go up in front of a Senate committee and talk about themselves and their qualifications, perhaps things would have turned out a bit differently.
Deborah, you know, maybe...
Dan Quayle was elected overwhelmingly to the United States Congress twice, to the United States Senate twice, defeated a six-term Democrat, wrote the Job Training Partnership Act with Teddy Kennedy, which employed
Which is
over
now
3
being looked
million...
at as a grand
Would you mind
boondoggle.
letting me talk? I know you get offended when somebody interrupts you. The Job Partnership Training Act, which employed over 3 million handicapped people in this country with good jobs. He has a fine record. The Democrats supported him. He changed the IBM treaty, ABM treaty, the INF treaty. See? It can happen to anybody, and I'll put his record against two people who make their living tearing somebody down any day.
Here is the doll, the picture of the doll that the vice president purchased on one of his trips. Is this Chile?
Yes,
Bought it in
it's
Chile.
Chile, yes.
Well, come on. I mean, how prudish are we going to be? What? It's kind of funny. Well, let me just see the doll on the. Well, let me just show you. That's what the doll looked like when he bought it. Now, when you raise the head of the doll, here's what you get. All right. So, come on. How prudish are you going to be? Huh?
Just a doll, big deal.
Yes.
I personally think that Quayle was chosen because of he won't be as disputing anything that President Bush says. I don't think he'll stand up and say anything against President Bush.
Well, no vice president ever will. And we'll be back in just a moment. On and on goes the Quayle bashing. You will not be surprised that the Quayle Quarterly, published out of Bridgeport, Connecticut, has offered a reproduction for its readers of the longhand Christmas greeting signed by Marilyn Quayle, in which the word beacon is misspelled. On and on we go. Well, guess who's here? None other than David Beckwith. Well, say what you want about David Beckwith. He works for a living. He is Vice-President Dan Quayle's press secretary. You don't look so tired or mauled to me. Tell me your thoughts here as you listen in on it.
Well, I'm struck by the irony here that the reason for the Quayle Quarterly is to give factual information to the American public about the Vice President. We all are in favor of that. But the fact is there are plenty of errors in the Quayle Quarterly. There are plenty of errors that are said right here on stage by the editors.
How is your boss dealing with this now emotionally?
Well, he takes it with a great deal of equanimity.
You think so?
He laughs, he tells jokes about it himself, adds to the humor, and he plugs ahead and does the job that he has been assigned.
But on and on it goes. You know, we look like this is quite a media event here, your boss. And is it possible that this kind of relentless assault on really could totally diminish or make null and void any potential future public candidacy?
No, I don't think so. If you study the vice presidency at all, you know that a lot of vice presidents who later either became presidents or at least candidates for the presidency suffered very similar ridicule and jokes, starting with George Bush, going back as far in history as you want to go. Right. In fact, Harry Truman, when he was vice president, made so many mistakes that people said, to err is Truman. That was a common expression at the time.
Yes.
One of our greatest presidents.
Right. Sam Donaldson asked the vice president on Primetime Live if it wasn't true that his wife was smarter than he was. How do you feel about that kind of inquiry?
Well, it's a legitimate inquiry. I don't think it's particularly pertinent to what's going on.
So you're not upset then at this kind of...
No, and he wasn't. He made a joke about it himself. He said he was smart enough not to answer that question.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I think that we all say dumb things at certain times, and we can all be taught what the orbit of Mars is. And I think that we should judge our leaders, really, no matter what office, on integrity. And I just question the integrity and the values of someone who is a hawk and who recommends sending boys off to war when he chose to go to the National Guard and he chose to represent his country in that manner.
Yes, I guess you have
I just wanted to say no one is perfect.
Yes.
The Quayle Quarterly might not be in very good taste, but I'm very happy to live in a country where it's allowed.
Where it's publishable, yes.
I just want to say that I think he's a fairly intelligent man, but I think he uses very poor judgment, and he's very immature.
Well, I wanted to say that he was able to have the right judgment to put himself into the position to become vice president.
If he got there, we should...
You should respect him.
Yeah, but I don't think, Phil, that just because somebody is a good politician, it doesn't necessarily make them a good leader. I mean, I've heard that argument before that, well, he's vice president, so he must be okay, you know, or he was a senator, so he must be okay.
Yeah.
Do the editors and publishers of the Quayle Quarterly have Dan Quayle's permission, and what does he think of it, and is he getting a cut of it?
They don't, thank goodness, they don't need Dan
Quayle
Quayle
has a paid press staff whose job it is to get his point of view across. Dan Quayle has the world as his stage. Dan Quayle can say, I want to go and lead the parade at the Indianapolis 500 and be on the front page of the newspaper and write an article for USA Today, and he can do that. We're the dissenting voice.
Phil, I really want to back up 4 questions.
I'll give you an opportunity to do that in just a moment. We'll be back in a minute. here. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, it is not just Dan Quayle that the Washington Press Corps attacks. It is quite a few other people, not just politicians either. And it is a lack of sheer respect and responsible reporting.
Oh, no, no, don't say that.
It's true,
Actually, Phil, did you know that in 1989 there were more jokes about the Exxon oil spill than there were about Quayle? And there were more jokes about Bush than there were about Quayle?
That's not true.
It is
That
true.
is true.
Hang on just a moment, please. You be brief.
I think the American people are going to be the ones on the other side of the joke. If we have to stop letting this happen, getting vice presidents and people that we don't know about.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Quayle is a stereotypical bimbo. He doesn't have any defenses and no issues to address.
If we'd have said that about a woman...
Because Dan Quayle is and will always be perceived as a political intellectual lightweight, he has deprived the Republican Party of a vice presidential successor to the presidency. He will never be president.
It's so popular to blame the media when the onus is on Quayle.
Respect is something that you earn.
Dan Quayle was less than a C student and not a very honest one at that. What kind of message are we sending to our kids?
If he demonstrated the intellectual ability we expect in our vice president, he wouldn't be having all these problems.
Dan Rodriguez joins us. Friends of Quayle. No kidding. You've actually got a fan club.
Absolutely. One of the problems is that the media has a lot to do with these falsehoods. For example, they said that there was a lot of booing at the Naval Academy last year. That turned out to be a complete lie. Everyone knows of it. The Washington Post printed that lie again yesterday. I hear they're going to do a retraction of it.
Really? You heard that, huh? The Washington Post will retract. Yes.
If Dan Quayle were president, would the American people tolerate his behavior? That's the question we should ask. The things he does, well, the Amatollah doll is a good question to ask.
Well, I mean, I don't want to send him to the gallows for a doll. Here. Yeah.
I think the American press is concentrating way too much on this satirical comedy and should be concentrating on issues that matter to the American people.
I think that the bottom line is he is vice president, and maybe we should do a little less tearing down and help build him up.
Yes, you can buy a Dan Quayle watch. Hold on to this. Yes, there are T-shirts. The President's Prayer Club. Keep George healthy. Is this funny? And how long will this go on? More Quayle memorabilia. I'll tell you what, there's no doubt about it. This is America. This is how it works here. Yes.
I think Dan Quayle was chosen because the Republican Party was concerned about the women's vote. They thought he was pretty. He looked like Robert Redford. And that's why he was chosen.
Yes.
It's fine to joke about the vice president, and it's great that he jokes about himself, but the fact that this man who could become president so consistently acts without thinking is no joke.
He's our vice president whether you like it or not, and so instead of going negative all the time, print something positive sometimes.
Yes.
This makes me worry about the intelligence of Bush, that he would choose someone like Quayle.
Yes. I don't know how to get back there. Yes.
We could have picked
The joke is on us, after all. He's representing us.
The joke is on us, you think. Yes, ma'am.
I think we're giving a little too much credibility to this Quayle Quarterly. I'd like to know a little more.
I think that the national news media, we have to see both sides of the issues, not just the mistakes in speaking, but also the good things that he has done on these national trips we don't hear about.
Yes.
As a young Republican, the American people will elect J. Danford Quayle as our president in 1996.
My hope is that George Bush reconsiders his running mate for 92.
Yes. Is that a possibility, Mr.